You look as if you're busy writing a song.
Well, that's kind of what I thought it was looking like, but I wish it was. Um, I did this thing a couple years ago at the Ryman with Garth, and it was the 50th anniversary of the top songs that had won Song of the Year. And at the end of it, he gave me his guitar.
Okay.
And so I'm doing a thing at the Ryman next week. So I thought I better change the strings and play that guitar while I'm out there. So I was just writing on the strings I took off. Garth Brooks played these strings.
Hey, they're going to be worth a lot of money sometime in the
Oh,
future.
can I kiss my wife goodbye here a minute?
Sure. Hi there.
That's Cindy.
Oh,
And you're going to take that.
Okay, this is what I'm taking. And that's the winding thing,
Yeah.
right? And this is yours.
Don't steal my water now.
All right.
All right, have fun. I'll see you in a little bit.
Yeah, let me just do my little introduction, and then we'll get to some chatting here. So hi everyone, this is Country Music News International. My name's Nigel Sharpe, and today I've got the pleasure of speaking to Mr. Kent Blazy, a very successful songwriter. And of course, I've got a whole bunch of questions for Kent, but the first one is, what do those letters mean on your hat?
Nashville Songwriters Association International. And they're based out of Nashville, but anybody who wants to become a songwriter, I tell them the first thing they need to do is join this, and they will let you submit songs and they'll critique them. You can go to meetings. They have offices all around the United States, but also in England and Ireland and a lot of different places. So it's a great avenue to have a songwriter be able to get people that can acknowledge what he's doing.
Okay, well, that covers my second question as well.
I was
going to ask you, for poor little guys like me who write songs and perform and all the rest of it, how do you get people? What's the best way to get people to listen to your songs? So you just answered. Well, thank you.
Yeah, the Nashville Songwriter Association, to me, the day that I moved to Nashville, I joined that. And at the time, they didn't have a lot of satellite offices like they do now. But if you go on the Nashville Songwriters International, you'll just see all the different places where they have meetings you can go to and all that stuff. The other thing that I would do, so you're in England, right?
No, actually, I'm in Germany. I mean, I'm English, but I live in Germany.
Well, what I would do, so are you trying to get your songs listened to in Germany or England or anywhere or?
Anywhere. Yeah, anyway, let's come back to you and a little bit of your history. You could be named as the person who let Garth Brooks loose on the world.
I could be one of them.
How did that come about, actually, when you first got together with him?
So the person that really took a chance on Garth Brooks was a guy by the name of Bob Doyle. And Bob had worked at ASCAP. He'd been one of the head people at ASCAP, and Garth had come in and played him some songs, and Garth liked Bob and Bob liked Garth. And so I'd known Bob for a long time because I was with ASCAP for a while, and I had a recording studio and I did demos for other writers. And so when you sing like I do in Nashville, you need to have a stable of really good, what they used to call demo singers. Yeah. And so if you or I wrote a song, you would want the very best person to sing your song to show it to an artist or a producer or whatever. So at the time, some of the singers that I had were Faith Hill, Martina McBride, Joe Diffie, Trisha Yearwood, Billy Dean, Doug Stone. All these people sang demos. And at that time, that's how a singer got a record deal, was by people hearing them on demos and saying, who is that? So Garth at the time was cleaning churches and selling boots, and Bob thought he could make more money singing demos. And he knew I had a studio, so he brought Garth over and they played me a cassette of 6 songs. And I liked what I heard and I liked his voice. And I said, I'll be glad to use him on any demos that I have coming up. And when Bob and Garth were leaving, Bob said, well, he writes a little bit too. And so, I knew nothing about the guy. And I said, well, fine, we can write together. That'd be fun to see what happens. And so we got together a few months later. And the story I like to tell is, I like to get ready by having a lot of ideas to run by another writer. I spent some time going through my old books and finding titles or hooks or musical ideas. And so I had some things ready because I didn't know who he was or what he was. And he came in, and at that time he was wearing really long leather dusters and big cowboy hats and big cowboy boots. And he looked like he was 8 feet tall. And so he walked into my living room, and I was sitting on the couch with my guitar, and he was standing up above me. And he said, I've got this idea. I've run by 25 writers and nobody likes it. And I kind of looked up at him and I said, gee, thanks. And he kind of got testy about it. He said, well, don't you want to hear it? And I said, well, yeah, play me what you got. And so he played me what he had. And I said, well, I really like this idea because it's what my mother used to tell me about tell the people you love how you feel about them while they're still alive. And so he said, well, what's wrong with it? And I said, well, you're killing somebody off in the first verse. And it's like killing off the star of the movie. There's nowhere to go. And he said, well, what would you do? And I told him, and he wrote it all down. And it ended up being the first verse of If Tomorrow Never Comes.
Yeah.
And the funny thing is, Garth tells the story that I just spewed out the first verse. And it must be true because he wrote it down in his handwriting. And then the rest of the song is in my handwriting, but he's never written down another lyric that we've ever written. He's just got a steel trap for a mind. And so I have living proof that he did write down that first verse. But so we wrote If Tomorrow Never Comes the first time we got together. We thought we'd written a really good song, and we pitched it around town and pitched him around town for at least a year or longer. And nobody liked the song. And people said, well, that guy Garth, he'll never get a record deal. What's a DJ going to say? That's Garth Brooks. Nobody's going to say that on the radio. And so finally one night he got to come sing one song at the Bluebird Cafe in Nashville. And he sang If Tomorrow Never Comes. Somebody from Capitol Records who'd passed on him for the third time that week said, hey, maybe we missed something. Why don't you come back in? He went back in and got a record deal. And If Tomorrow Never Comes was his second single that he put out and his first #1. So that's the magic of Nashville.
Yeah. And he never looked back.
He never looked back. That's right. And the other cool thing about Garth, there's a lot of people that never look back, but he's one of these people that's real loyal to the people that were there at the beginning. I mean, 30 plus years later, we're still friends. We still write together. And that's kind of unheard of these days in the music business, where it's on to the next hottest, biggest, brightest thing.
Yeah. It was interesting hearing you mention that kind of list of names of singers who were doing these kind of demo recordings, because that is basically a list of, a whole bunch of my favorite country artists, certainly through the 90s.
Well, and the funny thing was none of them could get a record deal.
Yeah, that's
what. And, it's like, how can you hear Joe Diffie or Trisha Yearwood or Billy Dean and not want to give them a record deal?
Yeah.
But that's what I tell the young artists that I work with today. Look, I know you're frustrated that maybe your deal's not happening like you wanted, but these other people struggle just like you're struggling, and now they're big stars. So, you just got to hang in there and keep doing what you do.
Anyway, getting back to your songwriting, because this is a theme that I love to kind of follow through or follow up on. When did that kind of all start for you?
Well, what I always say was the thing that really got me wanting to play guitar is hearing the Byrds do Mr. Tambourine Man.
Okay.
For most of my friends, it was the Beatles. The Beatles made them want to play guitar, but there was something about that 12-string guitar that resonated with me in a different way and made me want to play guitar. And so my parents got me one Christmas. It wasn't a 12-string, it's just a little crappy guitar from Korea or somewhere, like most of them were back then. And what had happened was I'd actually been writing poetry before that and gotten some published in like the high school newspaper and stuff like that. And so it was kind of like, well, somebody likes what I'm writing. So the minute I got a guitar, I started putting words that I was writing to the guitar chords that I knew, and just kind of took off from there and never stopped.
And then you mentioned also the recording studio. So how did you get to be running a recording studio?
So I'm lucky enough that I can play a lot of different instruments and can sing harmony. And so I had a little studio that I would just do my own demos for. It's like a little 4-track at the time. And people would hear my demos and they'd say, well, would you do a demo for me? And so I started doing it for other songwriters, and it became kind of a pretty big thing. And so I went from a 4-track to an 8-track to a 12-track to 16-track to 32-track. And I had so many people want me to demo their songs that I had to find this whole stable of singers. And that's how I had met Billy Dean and Trisha Yearwood. They were singing demos for me at a different studio, and we became friends. And then people seek you out because they know you're doing demos that maybe a producer or an artist will hear. So that's how I ended up with this stable of people. And then there's probably 10 or 12 other people I could name that were great singers that never went on and had anything happen for them.
Yeah.
It's just, the luck of the draw, I guess.
What's coming up next for you then? What plans have you got for 2021?
Well, the main couple plans I've got are to get these records out there now that you can actually meet people face to face again and be playing some gigs. I'm excited about one I've got coming up next week because it's at the Ryman Auditorium.
Oh, right.
And that to me is like the epitome of music and around the whole world. People come from all over the world to come to the Ryman and see where it all started. So that's fun. And then just with these gigs opening back up again, I've got a lot of festivals that are starting to happen again. And so it looks like I'll be out on the road traveling. It'll start up maybe end of July, August, September. And then I'm trying to put a band together again. I need a bass player and a drummer. So that's the other thing. Now that places are starting to open up again, there's going to be some places to play. But my bands all are with other people now because we didn't have any gigs going on.
Okay, Kent, you take care.
Okay, you too. And I hope to see you in the States in 2022.
Yes, sir, for sure.
Thank you.
All Thanks right. And bye.
Mm-hmm.